Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at some of the books that I'm excited to read in 2025. It feels really crazy with how fast 2024 has gone that we're already talking about releases for the books coming out next year. Anyway, I wanted to create a list of some of the new releases for 2025 that I'm excited for. A good number of these books are actually ones I've already pre-ordered and I'm very excited to have in my collection. So with that intro out of the way, let's get right into the video. I'm actually not breaking up this list by release date since I have found that some release dates can shift a little bit, and instead I decided to do it by genre. So we basically have adult books, YA books, and then nonfiction. But I'll try and put obviously an image of the book cover as well as the release date as it is right now on the screen. So the first book we have to talk about is probably one of my most anticipated releases for 2025, and that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is the third book in the Empyrean series, which started with Fourth Wing, which is an adult Dragon Rider romantasy. I am beyond excited for this. As I've talked on my channel a couple times now, I read Iron Flame and really enjoyed it. Even more than Fourth Wing, which seems to be a bit of a rare opinion to have. But I feel like with everything that happened in that book, I'm super excited to see what's going to happen in Onyx Storm. And I really hope I can read this book as close as possible to release date, because I feel like I've become a little bit more active in the Empyrean fandom. I get a lot of memes related to it on my For You page on Instagram. So as a way to kind of combat any spoilers I might accidentally see, I do want to read this book sort of more in the moment as people are reading it and reacting to it. I'm pretty sad that I didn't get tickets to see Rebecca Yarros when she comes to Philadelphia, but it sounds like a lot of people weren't able to get tickets. And there was also the added element of the fact that the Philadelphia show, the tickets got released 2 weeks or so after the rest of the book tour tickets were released. And I'm pretty sure I was in a work meeting at the time that the tickets dropped. So unfortunately not going to be able to go to that special show. I might still see if there's going to be any midnight release parties or something in any of the Barnes & Nobles in my area. And maybe I'll end up going to one of those. But regardless, I'm very excited to eventually read this book. The next book I have to talk about is the third and final book in the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies series, and that is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. This book is another one I'm really excited to read, probably as close to the release date as possible. These are a set of cozy fantasy romance books told in epistolary format, and I think this third one is probably going to be the most different than the other two, since the previous two books in the series kind of were leading up to the goal that was then accomplished at the end of the second book. And we're focused more on Emily Wilde going with her romantic love interest as well as some of her other colleagues to do research on fairies in different locations. And this one seems to be much more focused on one particular fae realm that we've already been to. I'm really interested in seeing how this last book is going to go and just kind of overall round out the story and the relationship of Emily and Wendell. Okay, the next one is one I'm pretty interested in, but it is quite outside of my normal comfort zone, and that is Anatomy of a Betrayal by Grace D. Lee. This is a mystery thriller that focuses on two rival grad students that are involved in an FBI investigation involving one of them spying for the Chinese government. This is a one where I feel I don't know if I necessarily would have put this book as an anticipated release on the concept alone to draw me in, but I really love Grace D. Lee's debut novel, which is A Portrait of a Thief. And I thought this book was supposed to come out sometime this year, but I guess it got pushed to 2025. And I feel since I do really like that book and her writing style, I'm willing to kind of take a chance and try this one out. Okay, the next book on this list is one I'm so excited for. I actually haven't pre-ordered it yet, but I definitely will. And that is To Sketch a Scandal by Jess Everly. This is going to be the fourth book in the Lucky Lovers of London series, which is a series of queer Victorian historical romances. Truly, when I found this book was coming out, I was screaming, crying, throwing up. I am so glad we're getting a fourth book in this series, and it's going to be about Warren, who is another kind of member of the friend group who works as the bartender at the Queer Gentlemen's Club that David owns. I'm super excited to see what this book is going to be like. And yes, I'm definitely going to be buying a copy to add to my growing collection of this series. Okay, the next book I wanted to talk about is one I actually don't know if it's going to come out in 2025. I really am just fingers crossed hoping that this book comes out then. Because if this book does not come out this year, I will be in shambles. And the book I'm talking about, of course, is Electa the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is supposed to be the fourth and final book in the Locked Tomb series, which are a set of adult sci fantasy novels with the general premise of lesbian necromancers in space. I'm so excited. I really don't know what to expect in this book. I know there's a general premise of Gideon and Harrow going through hell, or something like that. There's supposed to be apparently a wedding of some kind that's going to take place in this book. All of those things are just kind of like random tidbits that have been thrown out by Tamsin Muir in interviews. But I'm just really excited to see where this book goes. I don't know what the final confrontation is going to be like. I don't know what it's going to be like seeing Alecto. I don't know where this book could possibly go. I'm so interested in seeing what Alecto's character is like, since the way we've met her so far, I feel like she's going to be very different from the way she's been portrayed in the previous books. But I'm so excited to meet her and just like see her interact with all the characters. Overall, just like so excited for this book to come out. I'm really just waiting for like any piece of information in this book to drop. Okay, and the last book in the adult category is one I'm kind of taking more of a chance on. All the other books I've talked about so far, I've read from the authors before, but this is one that I have not, and that is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I know Joe Abercrombie is a very well-liked fantasy author, but this one in particular of his books just like seemed pretty interesting to me because it is a comedic dark fantasy that kind of is almost giving like Suicide Squad, in that it's about like kind of a ragtag group of adventurers that have all done bad things. I don't know, it sounds really interesting, and I'm willing to take a chance again on a new author, so hopefully I'm able to pick this up sometime next year. Okay, now let's move on to the young adult books that I have picked out, and there's not that many books in this category. The first one is obviously the book that I think most people are going to be reading next year, and that is, of course, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is Hunger Games book 0.5. I will be passing away when this book comes out. I need to honestly look up if there could be a midnight release for this book, because I remember going to like a midnight release for the last Harry Potter book. I know, cringe. And I'm like, I need to go to one for this book if those end up happening. But yes, obviously this is a Hunger Games prequel novel that is set before the first Hunger Games and after the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which happened during the second quarter quell, where there were double the number of tributes that there usually are. And our main character is going to be Haymitch. And similar to the other Hunger Games books, it's very much going to be about him kind of like forming alliances and bonding with the other tributes that are selected from District 12. One of whom we know a little bit about because she's mentioned in the second Hunger Games book. But overall, I'm really excited to see what ends up happening with this one. We know a little bit, again, because we have seen some parts of Haymitch's Hunger Games talked about in Catching Fire, but there's a lot definitely in terms of like what happens after the games that is a little bit more up in the air. A lot of very like emotional and traumatic things for Haymitch to go through. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Suzanne Collins does with this book. Okay, and the last young adult book I wanted to talk about is The Blood Phoenix by Amber Chen. This is the sequel to Of Jade and Dragons, which is a young adult book I read this year and really liked. The cover of this book also is so beautiful. The first book in the series also had a really beautiful cover, but I really like this design. This is a series of like YA silk punk fantasy romances. I am wondering if this book is moving a little bit more into like new adult territory, since there's going to be a 2-year time jump where Ying, who was 17 in the first book in the series, is now going to be 19. And it also seems like this might be like dual POV, both following Ying as well as her younger sister Nyan. Not really sure what to expect with this one in terms of like where the plot overall is going to go, but I really enjoyed the first one, so I'm willing to follow up with it and read the sequel and see how it goes from there. Okay, the last book I wanted to talk about is the only nonfiction book I have on my anticipated list, and that is You Didn't Hear This From Me, Mostly True Notes on Gossip by Kelsey McKinney. As I mentioned before, my wife and I are huge fans of the podcast Normal Gossip, and the host of that show is basically writing a nonfiction book on the topic of gossip. This is one of the books that I have pre-ordered, since I know both me and my wife will really want to read it. And we also got tickets with our friend to go see one of her live shows. So very excited to get this one when it comes out. And with that, those are a look at some of the new anticipated releases I have for 2025. I kept this list kind of minimal, and hopefully that means I will actually read the majority of the books I have on this list. A lot of ones on here I'm super excited to check out as soon as they release, and probably pre-order ahead of time so I'm able to get them as soon as possible from their release date. But that is going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing if you aren't already. If you'd like to see my reading updates in real time, you can follow me on the Storygraph, which is linked in the description, as well as following my Bookstagram, which is also linked in the description. And that is going to be it for me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!